live on 20 News, where the day is dark, but the newscasters will try to be little rays of sunshine with Zeina Peterson
and Joel Foster, coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson.
First, the local headlines.
Republican Representative Bob Thorpe's bill to ban social justice courses in K-12 schools has died a quick and well-deserved death. Paul Boyer, chairman of the House Education Committee, refused to call a hearing on the bill, claiming that it didn't have enough votes to survive. The bill, HB 2120, would have banned classes that promote, quote, resentment or social justice towards a race, gender, religion, political affiliation, social or other class of people. White Christianity was exempted from the bill. Thorpe, who introduced the bill, described it as his Martin Luther King Jr. bill, which is insulting not only to Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement, but also to the concept of a bill, anyone named Martin, and to kings everywhere. Thorpe's bill piggybacks off of another piece of legislation approved in 2010 that bans K-12 schools from offering courses that advocate the, quote, overthrow of the U.S. government. The bill was meant to target TUSD's Mexican-American Studies class. If passed, Thorpe's bill would have allowed the Attorney General to penalize K-12 and universities for offering social justice courses. Schools would suffer a 10% drop in their state funding if found to violate the law. Remember, this is from the party that advocates for small government.
And here's some news about legislation that isn't insane. A law that provides lawsuit protection for people who break into a vehicle to save a child or animal passed through the Senate Judiciary Committee yesterday. The bill will now be sent to the Senate for a vote. Governor Doug Ducey endorsed the law in his State of the State address last week. Ducey said the Good Samaritans shouldn't have to worry about helping to save a life, and he vowed to sign the bill if it reaches his desk. The bill's author, John Kavanaugh, said that the protection would require proof that there was real danger. The person who broke into the car would also need to call the police and wait until they arrive. Small-time con artist Daryl Wingnut Williams said the rule is unfair because most people that need saving usually drive BMWs and Porsches.
Arizona lawmakers want the state's residents to purchase more car insurance to pay for deaths and injuries caused to other drivers. SB 1111 would boost minimal personal injury liability to $25,000 per person and $50,000 per incident, with an additional $25,000 in property damage coverage. Representative Kate Brophy-McGee of Phoenix said the state's current limits are too low and haven't been adjusted since 1972. McGee pointed out that, as it stands, Arizonans can now drive a car or truck with insurance that pays for only $15,000 in personal injury costs and a total of $30,000 for all injuries and deaths involved in an incident. David Childers, lobbyist for the Property and Casualty Insurers Association, opposes the bill and says it'll increase premiums by about $80 per year. He thinks that the price rise will encourage more in the state to go without insurance. Childers said that currently 10% of the state now drives without insurance. There are also costs to the state to consider. When uninsured motorists damage guardrails and other public property, then the cost is passed on to the state, or to taxpayers to be more specific. A state task force found that the Department of Transportation suffered $16 million in damages over the past 3 years to public property through auto accidents. Of this total, $6 million was unrecoverable because it involved uninsured motorists. The task force also found that 30 other states had laws in the books requiring the $25,000 to $50,000 liability coverage that SB 1111 would accomplish.
Tomorrow, Tucson will hold a sister march to coincide with the Women's March in Washington. The Old Pueblo joins cities across the country which have organized events in solidarity with those marching in D.C. More than 4,000 Tucsonans have indicated on Facebook that they will hit the streets this Saturday in protest of the election of Donald Trump, who activists say threatens the civil rights of women. On that campaign trail, Trump has said that he seeks to reverse Roe v. Wade and will establish a Muslim registry, just to name of his few bright ideas. A grandmother in Hawaii thought of the idea to get some of her friends together and march on the Capitol. Her story went viral and has since been shared on Facebook by 581,000 people, with 153,000 people pledging to take part in the D.C. march. The National Park Service gave a permit for 200,000 people to gather in the Capitol. Meanwhile, Arizona anti-Trumpers will descend on their city's Capitol buildings. Organizers say that even though it's marketed as a women's march, the event is open to anyone. The march begins around 11:15 a.m. If nothing else, you might be able to get our troll-in-chief to tweet about you, which is a good story for the grandkids.
And I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about the program you're watching right now. Here at 5 on 20, we are undertaking a new kind of citizen journalism. We're going to give you the news as we see it, and we want more people to speak up with us. We need writers, hosts, anchors, camera people, sound people, the whole gamut. The times require a new way of informing ourselves. So join us. Do it. Do it now. Email us at info@creativetucson.org to get involved. These are scary times, and we need to hold our politicians accountable by reporting on their every notable action. We are here for you, and we want to cover all stories from all points of view. So don't be strangers. Now in national and international news.
Well, today was a day you quivered in fear of or eagerly awaited, depending on your sanity level. That's right, it's National Cheese Lovers Day. And also, Donald Trump, a reality star who appeared in Pizza Hut ads and Home Alone 2, was sworn in as the 45th President of the United States. That makes him the first sack of rancid meat ever elected to the nation's highest office. For all his controversy of late, Trump's speech was relatively subdued. He ran into a few hiccups in the beginning, accidentally greeting the crowd with "Privet" and burping lightly into the mic. But then he gained his foothold and proceeded to say America so much that it may have been trying to impress Lee Greenwood, who played the night before. Ironically, Trump said, quote, "The time for the empty words is over. Now is for the hour of action," and then muttered a string of empty words for the next 10 minutes. He soon grew bored, trailing off and repeating America a bunch of times. He did say he was grateful to outgoing President Obama, thanking him for being such a good foil for his campaign, and thanked candidate Hillary Clinton for playing the villain role. Trump then walked off, boarded Air Force One, and took a huge dump in the bathroom to claim his territory. Reportedly, he already begun reversing some of Obama's signing statements while on the throne, in between tweeting about the show Undercover Boss and finishing a Sudoku game.
Before Inauguration Day was even through, the White House website began scrubbing information related to some of the most important issues of our time. WhiteHouse.gov removed pages related to climate change, civil rights, the LGBTQ community, immigration, and healthcare from the site. Now, if I pretend to be an optimist for a second, I can imagine that the Trump administration is taking these pages down as part of a protocol and is going to revamp and republish these pages. But if I screw my head back on straight, I can see this is probably another one of Trump's cool tactics to pretend something doesn't exist and hope it just goes away.
And Donald Trump was inaugurated just in time to distract us from how cringe-inducing his cabinet confirmation hearings have been. Yesterday, Steven Mnuchin, Trump's pick for a Treasury Secretary, was grilled, and he was nearly every box checked off on the sketchy financial move checklist. Mnuchin was first asked about his former ownership of mortgage company One West, which he had bought back in 2009 when it was known as IndyMac. After the purchase, Mnuchin went on a foreclosure binge that had him walking up with a banging headache, but his pockets overflowing with cash. When he finally pieced together his fuzzy memories, he realized that many of the foreclosures targeted military veterans, widows, and the elderly, who were often convinced to sign into reverse mortgages. And one egregious example, One West foreclosed on a 90-year-old Florida woman who owed 27 cents on an insurance payment. Mnuchin defended his role, throwing blame at government agencies for creating the rules that forced foreclosures. But when asked about specific examples, Mnuchin said he couldn't talk about particular cases. He also said that he extended over 100,000 loan modifications to delinquent borrowers, but he was bound by previous contracts. Mnuchin admitted that he was concerned about the mortgage practices by the company, but had no choice but to follow the government's rules. It's not like he owned the company or anything. Questioning then moved into the issue of Mnuchin holding accounts in the Cayman Islands in order to avoid paying taxes. Here, Mnuchin said that they were not his accounts and that it was technically a legal financial move. Senator Chuck Schumer said that while this is true, these kinds of moves betray the idea that Trump's cabinet would be draining the swamp. Senator Bob Menendez echoed Schumer, pointing out that Mnuchin helped people avoid U.S. taxes. In response, Mnuchin shrugged his shoulders and said, "What can I say?" and then waited in freeze frame while the confused committees looked on.
Now that the era of protest is upon us, it looks as though some Republican lawmakers want to put an end to that whole free expression thing. Last week, Republicans in North Dakota introduced a bill that would free motorists of any legal liability if protesters were hit while assembling near one of the state's highways. This comes out after the high-profile protest over the Dakota Access Pipeline, where activists blocked local highways to raise visibility. Republicans claim that protesters illegally blocked traffic for 4 hours, and this should be considered an illegal act. The bill does specify that a motorist would have to hit protesters accidentally, but it doesn't spell out how that would be determined. Also in Minnesota, Republicans introduced a bill that punishes freeway protesters with a year of jail time. The legislation comes in response to Black Lives Matter protests that have occasionally shut down freeways in the state. Like a virus of anti-constitutionalism, the bills continue. In Washington state, Republicans proposed a plan that would classify civil disobedience as a felony crime and would be dubbed as economic terrorism. And of course, we have Iowa's Bobby Kaufman, whose Suck It Up Buttercup law we reported on a month ago. Kaufman's legislation would establish new criminal penalties for groups who shut down freeways for protests. It would also enact budget cuts for universities who provide grief counseling and safe spaces in connection with Trump's election. Considering that this issue is trumped up by conservative media and the safe space thing is pretty much a non-issue, Kaufman's bill might be as pointless as creating a law to make minotaurs illegal. So just to review, Second Amendment, good. First Amendment, criminal.
Republican lawmakers are laying the groundwork to sell off 640 acres of federal land to private companies. In a single line added to the House budget by Utah Representative Bob Bishop, federal land would now be considered to have a monetary value. This means that if Congress were to give public lands away, then it would be considered decreased revenue or contributing to the federal debt. With these conditions, it would be much easier to give away the land without a major act of Congress. But in reality, where Republicans don't live, the government would lose nearly $40 billion from tourism and recreation. In 2016, the federal government took in $2 billion from federal land. In addition to straight revenue, the Bureau of Land Management says the lands provide $646 billion in economic stimulus and 6.1 million jobs in the U.S. Most federal land is located in the West, where some states have already introduced legislation to sell off federal lands. One of the contested lands is near the Grand Canyon National Park in Arizona, an area that is said to have high supplies of uranium and copper. In 2012, Arizona voters rejected a law that would have transferred the land to the state, who would then likely sell it off to the highest bidder. Another concern is the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, known as for lush wildlife and unfortunately tons of oil. And with an oil executive ready to take over as Secretary of State, we might catch a glimpse of the rare unleaded moose. This all comes from a 2016 law that directed the Department of Agriculture to transfer 2 million acres of federal land to each state. Now, it looks as though some of these states aren't appreciating their gift, as they've already scrambling to see how much cash they can get. Usually when a land is transferred to the state, it becomes less likely to be sold. But that was before we lost our minds. Get ready to breathe the fresh air with the side of diesel fumes.
As we all know, soft sensuality doesn't come cheap. Trump's inauguration festivities will end up costing a pretty penny, especially if he has that Velveeta water slide he wanted at his gala this evening. So who's paying for it? A whole bunch of people, it turns out, and the names might be familiar. Topping a list of funders are some of the biggest companies in pharmaceuticals, oil, and defense contracting. The donors haven't officially been released, but the New York Times reports that Boeing, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, AT&T, UPS, and Chevron are among the firms donating to the inauguration committee. But after the show, it's the after party, and after the party, it's the hotel lobby. And that's where the real deals get made, which is why drug firms like Bristol Myers Squibb and Mallinckrodt are financing DC area parties. These companies are among a smattering of other corporations funding the Garden State Inaugural Gala, which will be attended by Chris Christie, among others. Guests can chat with Christie about Bruce Springsteen, tax relief, and what it was like to serve as Donald Trump's footstool. Or you could attend the Indiana Society's Ball, co-chaired by Karen Pence, wife of Mike Pence, and sponsored by BP, Peabody Energy, Duke Energy, and Coca-Cola. The party really gets going at midnight when Pence will emerge from a pool of extra thick Texas crude while giving birth to triplets.
U.S. airstrikes killed 80 Islamic State militants in the Libyan city of Sirte, according to Pentagon reports. Libyan state forces retook the city back in December, but hundreds of militants are said to have escaped before the battles begun. The Libyan government of national accord said that the strikes were preemptive motives to foil attempts by the Islamic State to plan new attacks on the city. Libya's GNA is a UN-backed-up group and supported by the Obama administration. While the group has international support, it's had trouble gaining popularity in Libya. Incoming President Donald Trump hasn't addressed the issue, so it's unclear whether the coalition will continue. Between August and December, the United States carried out almost 500 bombings in Sirte after the Islamic State took over the city in 2015.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange says that he intends to travel to the U.S. once Chelsea Manning is freed, as he promised. WikiLeaks tweeted last week that Assange would agree to extradition if the Obama administration agreed to grant clemency to Manning, who is sentenced to 35 years in prison. This week, President Obama used one of his last days in office to allow Manning to go free after serving 7 years. Obama said that justice had been served. Manning was found to have provided classified documents to WikiLeaks, who posted the videos of possible war crimes by the U.S. military. Assange was granted a temporary stay at the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he's been since 2012. He's also wanted in Sweden on rape charges, which Assange claims is politically motivated. The U.S. hasn't officially called for Assange's extradition and hasn't sought any charges against him. But Assange says the U.S. government has been planning for 7 years to build a case against him, and he would be willing to be extradited just to put an end to the case.
This was Zeina Peterson
and Joel Foster for 5 and 20 News.
Next up, Joel gives us an update on the recent media maelstrom.
Hi, and welcome to the Department of Mediocrity, where we talk about the best of the worst in media. I'm Joel Foster, and this is Just Another Friday. Repeat, this is Just Another Friday. All right, I swear I'm not going to talk about Donald Trump today. Well, I'm going to start by talking about him, but this segment isn't about him, so it counts. Look, he's president, there's nothing we can do about it, so let's just suck it up and wait for that Russian pee video to surface, okay? All right, we're going to talk about the media today because it looks like some major changes are on their way. And no, I'm not talking about that Reince Priebus sitcom we've all been promised. Looks like we'll have to wait a few years for that one. But it did all start with Priebus, when last Sunday Trump's chief of staff said that the administration was considering moving the White House press room to another space. Media outlets lost their minds, claiming that this was an attempt by Trump to kick the press out of the White House. But Priebus said it was because the current room is too small and they wanted to allow reporters from smaller organizations like blogs and smaller news organizations to be included. So the press went crazy, and a few days later, Trump backed off from the proposal. But like most things, Trump, what seems like good news rather became way worse news. Because now Trump says with the smaller room, he'll now have to choose which reporters to get to go in. It'll be like a trendy nightclub, except for A-list celebrities and bottle service will get Bill O'Reilly and a tub of antacids. Here's the issue. I'm all for expanded press. The more voices we hear, the better. But I'm a little nervous about who Trump is going to deem worthy to pass that velvet rope. Which leads me to Alex Jones, the human version of bath salts mixed with Monster Energy drink. It seems clear that Trump is trying to open the doors for fringe characters like Alex Jones and Matt Drudge, among others. Trump was the first president to ever appear on Alex Jones's news program, InfoWars, which is hosted on the website of the same name. Since then, Jones has showed a kind of fanboy-type fascination for Trump. Here's a clip of Alex explaining how he first became a fan of Trump.
My son, finally sold me on being a bigger supporter of yours. I mean, I liked you, love Americana, you're pure Americana, but I'm still, was research. But my 13-year-old son's really smart, does a lot of research. He watches all the debates, and he just really loves you. He is on cloud nine that you're here, Rex Jones, and it was his question, which president was your favorite? But all time, who's your favorite?
Well, all time, I'd say Ronald Reagan. Shorter term, I would say, well, you look at Lincoln and you look at Washington, you have to go with. They're the classics, right, Alex? You think in terms of the great classics, you have to go with the Lincolns and the Washingtons.
I agree. As a man's man, George Washington was a badass.
Yeah, that's what they say. I mean, that's what they say. They say he never told a lie. Let's hope that's true, okay? But George Washington was pretty good. But we had some great presidents. And we had some good presidents on the other side, too, in all fairness.
If I'm in a cafeteria.
Yep, his 13-year-old son got him on the Trump train. Alex Jones also became a fan of Nico Atsumi, Brendan Urie, and saying yas. I admit I had to look up what 13-year-olds are into, so I'll probably have the FBI at my door once the show's over, so there you go. But the Trump worship is common these days, and there's nothing wrong with it. He's our president after all. Well, not mine, but So what's wrong with our president touting Alex Jones? Well, because Alex Jones sometimes says things like this.
If I'm in a cafeteria, because I like going to blue-collar places like Luby's, and I see old ladies in there that are scrimping and can't buy food, I don't like to make a big deal of it. I go up to the front and pay for their food, and then I start crying because 10 years ago, people were able to buy themselves food. God, these people are so evil. Why can't America wake up and beat them? Donald Trump's not perfect, but he doesn't want to hurt you and your family. Hillary and Obama want to make you poor and pathetic. We have all their white papers. They hate you. They hate prosperity. They hate God. They hate children. And goddamn them to hell. We're going to find the lever to beat these people, and they're going to be beat. Excuse me, I just get so emotional. Look at her shark face, having to look at her with that demon face. That's a frickin' demon. We're going to have President Linda Blair, people, and I'm not going to go along with it. Excuse me.
Yeah, he can be a bit dramatic. And this is a guy who, if Trump gets his way, will be treated with the same respect and seriousness as the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. And if you thought media was one-sided now, let's get a look at how Alex Jones handles interviews of people who don't agree with him. Keep in mind that disembodied voice in the background is Alex Jones, not God doing a Hulk Hogan impression. Let's take a look.
He's got a bad attitude, man. He's like a child.
Oh, he's got a bad attitude.
Got a bad attitude. You got to give him a chance, man.
For what?
He's the president. America elected him.
This guy claims he's anti-elitist, and then meanwhile, the whole elite's against Trump.
Absolutely.
Hillary Clinton got 3 million more votes. He didn't even win the election.
Oh, she stole 5 states.
He did win the election, actually. Okay, he did.
More people voted for Hillary.
Okay, but that's not what decides the election. You realize that.
Doesn't matter. He won the popular vote, too.
No, negative. Have you ever seen did you know that 98% of the counties voted for Donald Trump in this country?
Oh, that's too bad. I know a lot of uninformed.
That's who won the election.
A bunch of slaves kept in compact cities. That's right. 98% of the counties voted. Anybody that's range-free didn't vote for him. Didn't vote for her.
What brought you out here?
I'm here to watch President Trump get elected because I am a Trump. My name's Jay Trump.
Thank you, sir.
Last name's Jay Trump. We've been voting for him, been pushing for him. We want a change in this country, and everybody wants to see the fakesism about what they don't want to have. Everybody else don't live in the bubble around here. The working men around here want to see a change. They want
the guy got
a change in the working.
Everybody else don't live in the bubble.
Where are you from?
Logan County, West Virginia.
Traveled here to see the inauguration.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen.
You know what, Mean Gene? That guy got it. Yeah, he understands the fakism going on. And Alex Jones understands fakism because he reports on a lot of fakism. Such as his report last week that ISIS is working together with Mexican cartels to, I don't know what. It seems like if ISIS were to blow up America, then the cartels wouldn't have anyone to buy their drugs, but who am I to question? It doesn't matter because a story like this lets Alex deal with his favorite 2 things to hate, Islam and Mexico. It's like he gets to kill 2 minorities with 1 stone. And the report does sound frightening when you first hear about it. Evil drug dealers bringing in evil jihadis to destroy us. But if you look more deeply, there's barely any information to back up his claims. After clicking through about 50 links, I finally found the government documents of the proof. Turns out it was based on a rumor that some Al-Qaeda member wanted to use human traffickers to get him into the US. But the guy mentioned in the report had already been living in Florida and was later killed in Pakistan. So it's not a widespread ISIS cartel partnership, but rather an idea based on a rumor that never happened anyway. But Alex Jones isn't just happy delivering over-exaggerated clickbait to his followers. No. He wants to completely destroy the media. And how do we know this? Well, here's a clip that shows what a fun night out in the town looks like for Alex Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're less than 48 hours from Trump's inauguration. I'm here in Washington, D.C. The Capitol is right out here in the street. I'm going to go out and show you in just a moment the U.S. Capitol. But first off, I have discovered the remains of not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7, not 8, not 9, not 10, but over 25 extinct dinosaurs here in D.C. This is an incredible find right down the street from the Smithsonian Institute of Natural History. This is going to be bigger than over 150 years ago when they first had T-Rex displayed here. I can't believe I discovered it. Ladies and gentlemen, look at this. Today's front pages, the museum of the news, of the dinosaur media. Soon, this will be completely in the past, but they still have vestigial copies keeping their facade going, like Obamacare's free.
Alex Jones pub crawls are always like that. We cut it off early because before it got to the scene of him puking up Jägermeister and taquitos in an alleyway. Okay, so look, I support expanded media, but if we're going to have expanded media in the White House, then we're going to have to get smarter about how we consume our news. We're going to need to develop some critical thinking skills. So here's a little primer to get started. First thing, whenever a story mentions anonymous sources like a senior government official or just sources tell us, wait on making a judgment. Until a name is revealed, you have no idea who's saying this. It could be a director, a low-level employee, or a valet driver. We don't know. Second thing, check the links that are provided on the site. Usually this is how hucksters like Alex Jones fool their readers. They talk about a report, for example, then they put a link in there. You would assume that it leads to the report, but often it just leads to another story talking about the same issue. This can sometimes go on for 3 or 4 rounds before you're even able to find the report. Who's going to do that? And often the report isn't even saying what they claim it's saying. It's like a game of Russian dolls with cute little fibs inside. And finally, if the guy delivering your news sounds like this,
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Serious crap. I'm in control now. Ridiculous. Sick. Scum. Filth. It's over for the globalist. Break the conditioning now. Excuse me. Yo, I got guns. I'll hurt you. I'll take you down. I'm a dangerous thug. If we want to call Hillary Clinton a lying, demonic, corporate witch, we can do it.